Captain Thomas Morgan's palm struck Jasmine Washington's cheek, the sound echoing through the first-class cabin. Passengers gasped. "You people don't belong here," he hissed. Little did he know, this 27-year-old woman owned 45% of Skyline Airways, his employer, and today would change everything. Before we dive into this shocking story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed discrimination in public, and subscribe to stay updated on more true stories of justice served. Now, let's see how this pilot's career took a nosedive after he picked the wrong passenger to discriminate against. The morning had started like any other for Jasmine Washington. The brilliant 27-year-old tech entrepreneur woke up in her Atlanta hotel room, deliberately choosing to wear jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and minimal makeup. Her curly natural hair was pulled back in a ponytail, completing her understated look. This wasn't about blending in, it was about observation. As the silent majority owner of Skyline Airways, Jasmine had developed a habit of flying incognito on her airline. No executive entourage, no special treatment, no announcement of her arrival. Just a regular ticket, albeit first class, and an opportunity to experience the airline as any other passenger would. "Another customer experience check," she murmured to herself, tucking her boarding pass for Flight 372 to San Francisco into her simple crossbody bag. When Jasmine arrived at the gate for Skyline Airways Flight 372, she stood quietly in line, observing the interactions between staff and passengers. The boarding process seemed efficient enough, though she noticed the gate agents were considerably warmer to certain passengers than others. She filed the observation away mentally. Another data point for her ongoing assessment. "Zone 1, first-class passengers may now board," announced the gate agent. Jasmine stepped forward, presented her boarding pass, and walked down the jet bridge. She settled into seat 2A, a plush window seat in the first-class cabin. The cool leather felt familiar beneath her fingertips as she stored her small bag under the seat in front of her. She pulled out her journal, ready to document her observations as she had done dozens of times before. Flight attendant Sofia Rodriguez, a friendly woman in her mid-30s with warm brown eyes, began her first-class service routine. She approached Jasmine with a genuine smile. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Washington. May I offer you a pre-departure beverage? Perhaps some champagne?" "Water would be perfect, thank you," Jasmine replied, returning the smile. As Sophia moved to fetch the water, Captain Thomas Morgan emerged from the cockpit for his pre-flight cabin check. The 50-year-old pilot had been with Skyline Airways for 22 years, his silver-streaked dark hair and confident stride projecting authority. He nodded curtly to the first-class passengers in the first row, an older white couple who greeted him by name, before his gaze fell on Jasmine. His stride faltered. His eyes narrowed. The pleasant expression he'd worn seconds earlier vanished. Jasmine felt his stare but continued writing in her journal. She'd grown accustomed to such reactions throughout her life, though they still stung every time. Captain Morgan approached her seat, standing over her with arms crossed. "Excuse me," he said, his voice sharp enough to draw attention from nearby passengers. "I believe you might be in the wrong cabin." Jasmine looked up, her expression neutral despite the immediate knot forming in her stomach. "No, sir. This is my assigned seat. 2A. "Let me see your boarding pass," he demanded, extending his hand. Jasmine reached into her bag and produced the document, which she handed to him calmly. Captain Morgan examined it with exaggerated scrutiny, turning it over as if expecting to find evidence of forgery. "This seems irregular," he muttered, though the boarding pass was perfectly standard. "How did you come to be in this seat?" "I purchased a first-class ticket, just like everyone else here," Jasmine explained patiently. By now, Sophia had returned with Jasmine's water. Noticing the tension, she intervened. "Is everything all right, Captain?" "I'm just making sure passengers are in their assigned seats," he replied without looking at her. "This doesn't look right to me." "Her boarding pass was scanned at the gate, Captain," Sophia pointed out. And I've already verified her seat assignment. The captain's jaw tightened. I'm the commanding officer of this aircraft, and I have concerns about the authenticity of this boarding pass. Jasmine maintained her composure. Captain, I understand you're doing your job, but I have every right to be seated here. My ticket is valid, as the gate agent and your flight attendant have confirmed. Don't tell me how to do my job, Captain Morgan snapped, his voice rising. In my experience, when something looks out of place, it usually is. Several passengers had begun recording the interaction on their phones. Jasmine was painfully aware of the subtext in his words and the eyes now watching them. Sir, I'm simply a passenger who purchased a ticket for this seat. There's nothing out of place here except perhaps your assumption about who belongs in first class. Captain Morgan's face flushed red. Are you accusing me of something? Because I won't tolerate disrespect on my aircraft. I'm not being disrespectful, Jasmine stated firmly. I'm merely, the slap came without warning. Captain Morgan's hand struck her cheek with enough force to snap her head to the side. The sound cracked through the cabin like a gunshot, leaving stunned silence in its wake. You people don't belong here, he hissed, low enough that only those nearest could hear the words, but not the nearby phones recording video. Jasmine touched her stinging cheek, shock momentarily rendering her speechless. In all her years of experiencing discrimination, no one had ever physically assaulted her. Sophia gasped. Captain Morgan. That's absolutely unacceptable. Passengers erupted in a mixture of outrage and uncomfortable murmurs. The older white couple in the first row stared straight ahead, pretending not to notice. This passenger was being disruptive and confrontational, Captain Morgan announced loudly, seemingly for the benefit of the recording phones. I want her removed from this aircraft immediately. I was doing nothing of the sort, Jasmine finally found her voice. And there are plenty of witnesses and recordings to prove it. Security to the aircraft, Captain Morgan spoke into his radio. Disruptive passenger in first class, requiring immediate removal. Sophia looked horrified. Captain, this is wrong. She did nothing to warrant this treatment. Do you want to join her? He threatened. Get back to your duties or I'll report your insubordination. Within minutes, 2 security officers boarded the plane. Captain Morgan immediately approached them. This passenger became confrontational when asked to verify her seating assignment. When she grew increasingly aggressive, I determined she poses a security risk to this flight. That's a lie, Jasmine stated calmly. I was seated quietly when the captain approached me, questioned my right to be here, and then physically assaulted me when I defended myself verbally. The security officers looked between them, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. One of them, noticing the phone still recording, shifted nervously. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us while we sort this out, the taller officer said. Am I being removed from a flight for which I have a valid ticket, after being assaulted by a staff member? Jasmine asked pointedly. We just need to resolve this situation, the officer replied evasively. Captain Morgan stood with a triumphant expression. My flight has a schedule to maintain. I cannot delay departure for this disruption. Jasmine gathered her belongings with deliberate slowness. She could fight this more aggressively, could reveal who she was right now. But something told her to wait. To observe. To gather evidence of how Skyline Airways handled situations like this when they thought no one important was watching. As she was escorted off the plane, she heard a voice behind her. This isn't right, called out a male passenger. I'm Dr. Anthony Davis, and I witnessed everything. This woman did nothing wrong. But his protests, like hers, went unheeded as she was marched back up the jet bridge, her cheek still stinging from the slap delivered by a man who had no idea he'd just struck the person who signed his paychecks. The fluorescent lights of the terminal cast harsh shadows across Jasmine's face as the security officers escorted her through the bustling airport. Fellow travelers stared openly, some whispering behind their hands, others boldly taking photos. The humiliation burned hotter than the lingering sting on her cheek. "Ma'am, we need to verify your identity and the situation that occurred on the aircraft," said Officer Jenkins, the shorter of the two security personnel. His tone suggested she was already guilty of something. "My identity is on my boarding pass and ID, which have already been verified multiple times," Jasmine replied evenly. "And regarding the situation, I was physically assaulted by Captain Morgan after he racially profiled me." Officer Reynolds, the taller one, frowned. "Those are serious allegations. Let's not jump to conclusions about the captain's motivations." He said, and I quote, "You people don't belong here," Jasmine stated. "What conclusion would you suggest I draw from that statement?" The officers exchanged uncomfortable glances but said nothing as they led her to a small, windowless room in the airport security area. The space contained only a metal table and 3 chairs, an interrogation room disguised as a passenger assistance center. "Please wait here while we contact Skyline Airways representatives," Officer Jenkins instructed before both men stepped outside, the door clicking shut behind them. Jasmine took a deep breath and pulled out her phone. She had 23 new notifications. The incident was already spreading across social media platforms. #FlyingWhileBlack was trending, with multiple passenger videos showing Captain Morgan's confrontation with her, including the shocking moment of the slap. She dialed a familiar number. "Michael," she said when her assistant answered. "I've encountered a situation on Skyline Flight 372. Are you alright?" Michael Kingston's voice was immediately concerned. "Do you need me to send the legal team?" "Not yet," Jasmine replied carefully, aware the room might be monitored. "I want to see how the company handles this without knowing who I am. Don't reveal my position with the airline under any circumstances. Just monitor the situation and keep me updated on the social media response." "Understood." "But Jasmine, if you've been harmed, I'll call you back soon," she interrupted, hearing footsteps approaching the door. The door opened to reveal a harried-looking man in a Skyline Airways uniform with "Customer Service Manager" embroidered on his breast pocket. Behind him stood Dr. Anthony Davis, the passenger who had spoken up for her on the plane. "Ms. Washington? I'm Kevin Barnes, Customer Service Manager for Skyline Airways," the man introduced himself with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I understand there was an incident on Flight 372. "An incident? Dar." Davis interjected before Jasmine could respond. "Your pilot physically assaulted this woman for nothing more than sitting in the seat she paid for." Kevin's smile tightened. "Sir, while we appreciate your concern, this is a matter between Skyline Airways and Ms. Washington." "I'm a witness," Dr. Davis insisted. "I saw everything, and I refuse to stay on that flight after what happened. The captain should be removed from duty, not this passenger." Jasmine studied Dar. Davis with new appreciation. The middle-aged black man with salt and pepper hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses had given up his own flight to stand with her. "Thank you, Dr. Davis," she said sincerely. Kevin cleared his throat. "Ms. Washington, on behalf of Skyline Airways, I want to apologize for any misunderstanding that may have occurred." "Misunderstanding?" Jasmine cut him off. "Your pilot approached me without provocation, questioned my right to be in first class despite my valid ticket, and then physically struck me when I defended myself verbally. Which part of that do you consider a misunderstanding?" Kevin's expression flickered between discomfort and dismissal. "These situations can be complex, and we need to gather all the facts. The facts are on video, being shared across social media as we speak," Dr. Davis pointed out. Kevin's eyes widened slightly at this information. He turned back to Jasmine. "Ms. Washington, we value all our customers and take these matters very seriously. As a gesture of goodwill, I'd like to offer you a voucher for a future flight." "A voucher?" Jasmine repeated incredulously. "Your employee assaulted me, publicly humiliated me, and had me removed from a flight I paid for, and your response is to offer me a voucher to experience it all again?" Kevin shifted uncomfortably. I assure you, we're looking into the matter, but Captain Morgan has filed a report stating you were disruptive and potentially posed a security risk. That's an outright lie, Dr. Davis interrupted. I'm a university professor with no connection to Ms. Washington, and I can testify that she was completely calm and respectful while being harassed. Nevertheless, Kevin continued, we have procedures to follow. The captain's assessment of passenger behavior is taken very seriously for safety reasons. Jasmine leaned forward. Let me be very clear, Mr. Barnes. I was profiled, harassed, assaulted, and falsely accused by your employee. I will not accept a voucher as compensation, nor will I accept the implication that I was somehow at fault. Kevin's professional veneer cracked slightly. Ms. Washington, I'm trying to resolve this amicably. What exactly are you looking for here? Accountability, she replied without hesitation. I want Captain Morgan suspended pending an investigation, a formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing from the airline, and a review of your company's training procedures regarding racial bias. Kevin actually laughed, though he quickly covered it with a cough. I'm afraid those decisions are well above my pay grade. The most I can offer is the voucher and my personal apology for your inconvenience today. Jasmine stood up slowly. Then this conversation is over. You'll be hearing from my attorney. That's your right, of course, Kevin replied, his tone suggesting he'd heard such threats before and wasn't concerned. Though I should mention that litigation can be lengthy and costly, while our settlement offer is available right now. Are you attempting to intimidate her? Dr. Davis asked incredulously. Kevin ignored him, keeping his eyes on Jasmine. The voucher offer will remain open for 24 hours. After that, well. He shrugged. We consider the matter closed. Jasmine gathered her belongings with deliberate calm. Mr. Barnes, do you know why most major corporations have blind customer experience programs? The question seemed to catch him off guard. I'm sorry. It's so they can understand how their employees treat ordinary customers when they think no one important is watching, she explained. You might want to remember that. You never know who's taking notes. She walked out of the room with her head held high, Dr. Davis following close behind. That was handled atrociously, Dr. Davis said once they were out of earshot. I'm Anthony Davis, by the way. I teach African American Studies at Emory. Jasmine Washington, she replied, shaking his extended hand. Thank you for your support back there. Not many people would have given up their flight to stand with a stranger. Ms. Washington, when I see injustice, I can't just sit quietly, he said. And what happened to you on that plane was blatant discrimination. I'm assuming you're not accepting that insulting voucher. Definitely not, Jasmine confirmed as they walked through the terminal. But I am interested in seeing exactly how far up the chain this problematic culture goes. Dr. Davis pulled out his phone. The videos are already getting thousands of shares. Look. He showed her a Twitter feed where multiple angles of the incident were being shared with captions like, racism at 30,000 feet, and, pilot assaults black woman for sitting in first class. The hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack had thousands of posts. This isn't going away for them, Dr. Davis observed. But are you really okay? He hit you hard. Jasmine touched her cheek, which still bore a faint red mark. I'll be fine. But Skyline Airways won't be when I'm done with them. Good, Dr. Davis nodded approvingly. I've got to rebook my flight, but here's my card. Please keep me updated, and let me know if you need a witness statement. After Dr. Davis left, Jasmine booked a room at the airport hotel. Once inside the privacy of her room, she finally allowed herself to process what had happened. Her hand trembled slightly as she poured a glass of water. For all her wealth and power, in that moment on the plane, she had been reduced to nothing more than a black woman who didn't belong, in the eyes of Captain Morgan. The reality of that truth settled heavily on her shoulders. She called Michael again. I want everything we have on Captain Thomas Morgan and the executive team at Skyline, she instructed. Don't reveal my identity yet, but start monitoring internal communications about this incident. I want to see how they talk about it when they think no one's listening. Already on it, Michael assured her. The videos are everywhere, Jasmine. CNN just picked up the story. Good, she said, her resolve hardening. Let's see how they handle a PR crisis before they learn who they're really dealing with. After hanging up, Jasmine opened her laptop and began documenting everything that had happened, every word, every action, every dismissive look from Kevin Barnes. As she typed, a notification appeared on her screen. A company-wide email had just been sent to all Skyline Airways employees. The subject line read, regarding today's first-class incident, confidential internal communication. Jasmine's eyes narrowed as she began to read the email, which characterized her as combative and uncooperative, while describing Captain Morgan as following standard security protocols. The narrative was already being rewritten, and she was being cast as the villain. Not this time, she whispered to her empty hotel room. Not this time. The sleek penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park stood in stark contrast to the two-bedroom apartment in Harlem where Jasmine Washington had spent her childhood. 17 years had passed since the day 10-year-old Jasmine stood at her parents' funeral, clutching her grandmother's hand while rain fell on twin caskets. The car accident that claimed James and Loretta Washington's lives had also claimed Jasmine's childhood, replacing it with a determination that would eventually transform her from a grieving child into one of the most powerful businesswomen in America. Jasmine paced the living room of her New York apartment 2 days after the incident, her reflection ghosting across floor-to-ceiling windows as Michael Kingston updated her on the situation. Captain Morgan has been placed on administrative leave with pay pending an internal review, Michael reported, his fingers making air quotes. Which essentially means a paid vacation while they wait for this to blow over. Jasmine's lips pressed into a thin line. And the internal communications? Our sources inside Skyline confirmed that CEO William Preston is treating this as a minor PR issue. His exact words in an executive meeting were, "This will be yesterday's news by tomorrow." These things always are. He thinks this is minor. Jasmine's voice remained steady, though her eyes flashed with anger. A uniformed representative of their company physically assaulted a passenger based solely on the color of her skin. They don't know they're dealing with Jasmine Washington, Michael reminded her with a slight smile. To them, you're just another customer they can ignore. Jasmine stopped pacing and gazed out at the Manhattan skyline. The city lights twinkled against the darkening sky, reminding her of the nights she'd spent studying by lamplight in her grandmother's apartment, the elderly woman working double shifts as a hospital orderly to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Do you know what my grandmother told me after I was sent home from the science fair in 7th grade? Jasmine asked quietly. Michael shook his head. I had built a functioning solar-powered water filtration system, but the judges accused me of having adult help because they couldn't believe a black girl from Harlem could create something so advanced. Her fingers traced invisible patterns on the window glass. I came home crying, and Grandma Martha sat me down and said, "Baby girl, in this world, you'll have to be twice as good to get half as much. That's not fair, but that's real. So you be twice as good, and then when you get power, you change the rules." Jasmine turned back to Michael. I've been twice as good my whole life. MIT at 16. Venture capital funding for my VR company at 21. Billionaire by 25. And now, I have the power to change the rules. Michael nodded, understanding the shift in his boss's demeanor. This wasn't just about one incident anymore. This was about the promise Jasmine had made to her grandmother, who had passed away just months before Jasmine's technology company, WashTech, sold for $3.2 billion. Tell me how you became involved with Skyline Airways again, Michael requested, already knowing the story but sensing Jasmine needed to verbalize her purpose. 2 years ago, I was flying first class on a competitor airline. The flight attendant repeatedly asked to see my boarding pass, ignoring the white passengers around me. When I filed a complaint, it was dismissed as a misunderstanding. Jasmine moved to her desk and pulled up a file on her computer. So I researched discrimination complaints across all major airlines and found Skyline had the highest number of incidents but the lowest rate of addressing them. And that's when you decided to buy in, Michael concluded. Harold Blackstone was looking to reduce his ownership stake for retirement. I approached him privately and offered to become a silent partner, 45% ownership with no board seat, no public announcement. I wanted to observe how the company operated when they didn't know who was watching. Classic Jasmine, Michael smiled. The undercover boss approach. I've submitted anonymous recommendations for diversity training, inclusive hiring practices, and accountability measures through various channels for the past 18 months, Jasmine continued. Every single one has been ignored or dismissed by Preston and his team. She pulled up another file, a compilation of emails, reports, and meeting minutes she'd been quietly collecting. Preston has been trying to identify the mysterious investor for months. He's uncomfortable with someone owning such a large stake without showing their face. Jasmine's expression hardened. He's about to get his wish. Michael sat forward in his chair. So what's the plan? First, we gather more evidence. I want to know every discrimination complaint filed against Skyline in the past 5 years, and how each was handled. I want to know if Captain Morgan has prior incidents. I want communications between Preston and the board about this current situation. Already compiling that data, Michael assured her. Preliminary findings suggest Captain Morgan has had 3 previous complaints of similar behavior, all dismissed for insufficient evidence. No surprises there, Jasmine muttered. What about Sofia Rodriguez, the flight attendant who tried to intervene? She's been with Skyline for 7 years, exemplary record. According to our source in HR, she's been called in for a performance review tomorrow, likely a pretext for disciplinary action after she contradicted the captain's version of events. Jasmine's jaw tightened. They're going to punish the one person who did the right thing? Add her name to the priority list. I want to know everything about her situation. She moved to a sleek cabinet and poured herself a glass of water, declining the expensive scotch that had been a gift from a Silicon Valley colleague. Despite her wealth, Jasmine maintained modest personal habits, a legacy of her grandmother's influence. What about Dr. Davis? She asked. Anthony Davis, Ph.D. in African American Studies from Harvard, tenured professor at Emory University. Published author, respected academic, active in civil rights causes. He's been posting about the incident on social media and has gathered quite a following. Skyline's PR team has reached out to him 3 times attempting to clarify the situation. In other words, they're trying to silence him, Jasmine interpreted. Make sure he has whatever support he needs. Michael nodded, making a note. There's something else you should know. Harold Blackstone has been trying to reach you. He says it's urgent. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Harold Blackstone, the founder of Skyline Airways, had sold her the shares but maintained a 15% ownership stake. Although he'd stepped back from day-to-day operations when Preston took over as CEO 5 years ago, he remained chairman emeritus with limited influence. Did he say what it was about? Just that he saw the news and recognized you from your photos during the acquisition negotiations. He's concerned about the situation. Jasmine considered this information. Set up a secure call for tomorrow. I want to hear what he has to say before I make my next move. As Michael left to make arrangements, Jasmine returned to the window. The city below continued its rhythmic pulse, unaware of the storm she was about to unleash. From this height, people looked tiny, indistinguishable from one another regardless of skin color or status. Twice as good, she whispered to herself, remembering the lonely nights of studying, the scholarships that never quite covered all expenses, the venture capitalists who initially dismissed her technological innovations until the prototypes proved too revolutionary to ignore. Her phone chimed with a news alert. Skyline Airways issues statement on first-class incident, promises full investigation. Jasmine opened the link to find a carefully worded corporate statement that acknowledged an unfortunate interaction, but stopped short of admitting any wrongdoing or even accurately describing what had occurred. The statement emphasized the airline's commitment to all passengers, while subtly implying that there were multiple perspectives on the incident. Another notification appeared, a private message from Sofia Rodriguez through LinkedIn, MS. Washington, I want to apologize for what happened on Flight 372. I've provided a truthful statement to management about what I witnessed, but I'm being pressured to change my account. I believe I may lose my job for speaking up, but I cannot stay silent about what the captain did to you. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. Jasmine's resolve solidified as she read the flight attendant's words. This wasn't just about her personal experience anymore. This was about Sofia Rodriguez, about Dr. Davis, about every passenger who had ever been humiliated, dismissed, or mistreated because of their skin color. She typed a response to Sofia, "Thank you for your integrity. Please document everything and don't sign anything from HR without having it reviewed. Help is coming." Then she called Michael back. "Move up the timeline," she instructed. "I'm done watching from the shadows. It's time Skyline Airways learns exactly who they're dealing with." William Preston strode through the executive floor of Skyline Airways Atlanta headquarters, his Italian leather shoes clicking against marble floors. The CEO's tailored suit and perfectly knotted tie projected the image of control he desperately needed to maintain, especially today. "Patricia, my office, now," he barked at his PR director as he passed her office. Patricia Miller, a shrewd woman in her 40s who had navigated multiple corporate crises during her career, gathered her tablet and followed him without question. She knew that tone, something had escalated. Preston closed his office door and turned to face her. "The videos have hit CNN. Social media is exploding. Give me solutions, not problems." Patricia maintained her professional composure. "We've issued the preliminary statement emphasizing our commitment to investigating the matter thoroughly while respecting all parties involved." "Cut the PR speak," Preston interrupted. "Is this going away or not?" "Not immediately," Patricia admitted. "The optics are problematic. Multiple videos clearly show Captain Morgan striking the passenger, and his comment about, 'you people,' was picked up on at least one recording." Preston swore under his breath. "He's one of our most experienced pilots. 22 years with the company, perfect safety record." "Unfortunately, safety isn't the issue here," Patricia pointed out. "It's a clear case of racial profiling culminating in physical assault, captured on video from multiple angles. Has anyone identified the passenger? Is she somebody important?" Preston asked, loosening his tie slightly. Patricia consulted her tablet. "Jasmine Washington, 27, no prominent public profile that we've discovered. She hasn't made any public statements yet, though she did refuse the voucher Kevin Barnes offered." "Of course she did," Preston muttered. "What's Morgan saying?" "He's maintaining that she was confrontational and that he felt threatened, despite video evidence to the contrary. He's filed an incident report claiming she was disruptive and posed a security risk." Preston moved to the window overlooking the airfield where Skyline planes took off and landed in a carefully orchestrated dance. "Put him on paid leave while we investigate. Keep him out of the public eye." "Already done," Patricia confirmed. "Though I should mention that one of the flight attendants, Sofia Rodriguez, has given a statement contradicting Captain Morgan's version of events. She's been called in for a performance review tomorrow." "Make sure HR understands the situation," Preston said, his implication clear. "We need a unified narrative here." "What about settlement options?" Patricia asked. "Should legal prepare a package with an NDA?" Preston considered this. "Yes, but don't rush it. Let's see if this blows over first. These stories have a 3-day life cycle at most. By next week, everyone will have moved on to the next outrage. His phone rang, the special line reserved for board members. Preston sighed and answered it on speaker. "William, it's Robert Chambers. The board is concerned about these videos circulating. This looks extremely bad for Skyline." "Robert, we're handling it," Preston assured the board member. "Captain Morgan has been placed on leave pending a full investigation. Our PR team is managing the narrative." "Managing the narrative?" Robert's voice rose. A Skyline pilot in uniform was filmed striking a female passenger. "This isn't a narrative issue. It's a potential legal catastrophe. The situation is more nuanced than the videos suggest," Preston countered smoothly. "There were behavioral concerns that preceded, save it for the press release," Robert cut him off. "The stock is already down 3% this morning. We need decisive action, not corporate doublespeak." "I understand your concern," Preston said, maintaining his calm demeanor. "But hasty decisions could create additional liability. Let me handle this my way." After a tense silence, Robert responded, "You have 48 hours to contain this, William. After that, the board will take action directly." The call ended abruptly, leaving Preston and Patricia in momentary silence. 3% drop. Patricia finally said. "That's an overreaction to a minor PR issue." "Tell that to the board," Preston replied. "Any word on our mystery investor's reaction to all this?" Patricia shook her head. "Still no identification on who owns that 45%. They continue to operate through lawyers and proxies." "I don't like it," Preston frowned. "Who buys that largest stake in a company and then remains completely anonymous? It's been 2 years of this shadow game. Perhaps they're just a passive investor interested in the dividends?" Patricia suggested. "Nobody passive buys 45%, Preston countered. "They want something. I just haven't figured out what yet." His phone chimed with an email notification. Preston glanced at it and froze. "What is it?" Patricia asked, noting his expression. "It's from the legal department. Jasmine Washington has retained Benjamin Taylor as counsel." Patricia's professional mask slipped. "The civil rights attorney? The one who won the class action against National Airlines last year?" Preston nodded grimly. This just got considerably more complicated. Meanwhile, across town, Sofia Rodriguez sat in her small apartment, staring at her computer screen in disbelief. The email from HR had been thinly veiled in its threat. "Regarding your statement on the Flight 372 incident, we've identified several discrepancies with other witness accounts that raise concerns about your observational accuracy and judgment. These concerns will be addressed in tomorrow's performance review." Sofia had been with Skyline Airways for 7 years, working her way up from regional flights to the premium international routes. She had an unblemished record and consistently positive passenger feedback. Now, for simply telling the truth, her career was in jeopardy. Her phone rang with an unknown number. "Hello," she answered cautiously. "Ms. Rodriguez? This is Benjamin Taylor, attorney at law. I represent Jasmine Washington in the matter of the Skyline Airways incident. I understand you've been called in for a performance review tomorrow." Sophia's heart raced. "How did you know that?" "Ms. Washington suggested I reach out to you. She mentioned you tried to intervene during the incident and that you might be facing repercussions for contradicting Captain Morgan's account." "That's accurate," Sophia admitted. "I can't believe she remembered me with everything that was happening." "Ms. Washington is very observant," Benjamin replied. "She's concerned about your situation and wanted me to inform you that if Skyline retaliates against you for telling the truth, we're prepared to include that in our legal action against the company." Sophia felt a wave of relief, quickly followed by anxiety. "I can't afford to lose this job, Mr. Taylor. I understand, and we're not asking you to fall on your sword. Just continue telling the truth, and document everything. Don't sign anything without having me review it first. My services to you will be covered by Ms. Washington." After the call ended, Sophia sat in stunned silence. She had expected to fight this battle alone, potentially sacrificing her career in the process. The idea that the passenger she had tried to protect was now trying to protect her brought tears to her eyes. Across the city, Dr. Anthony Davis was facing his own pressure. The department chair had called him in for an urgent discussion after Skyline Airways' corporate office had contacted the university. "Anthony, you know I support academic freedom and your advocacy work," Dean Wilson began, "but the airline is suggesting your public statements about this incident could be construed as defamatory." "I witnessed it firsthand, James," Dr. Davis replied firmly. "There's nothing defamatory about stating facts. They're threatening potential legal action against the university if you continue discussing the incident publicly." Dr. Davis leaned back in his chair. "So they physically assault a woman, then threaten the witnesses who speak out? And the university is considering yielding to this pressure?" Dean Wilson sighed. "I'm just asking you to be cautious in your public statements until this is resolved. Would you be giving me this same warning if I weren't discussing racial discrimination?" Dr. Davis asked pointedly. Before the dean could answer, Dr. Davis received a text message from an unknown number. "Dr. Davis, this is Jasmine Washington. Please be advised that attorney Benjamin Taylor will be contacting you shortly regarding Skyline's attempts to silence you. Do not yield to their pressure. Full legal support will be provided." Dr. Davis couldn't help but smile as he showed the message to his increasingly uncomfortable dean. "Do you agree that corporations too often try to cover up discrimination incidents rather than address them directly? Comment number 1 if you believe companies should be held accountable for their employees' actions. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed someone standing up against injustice like Sofia Rodriguez did, and subscribe to hear more stories about powerful comeuppance. But what could one woman, even a wealthy one, really do against a massive corporation with teams of lawyers? Was Jasmine in over her head, or did she have an ace up her sleeve that Skyline Airways never saw coming? Let's find out what happened next. The offices of Taylor and Associates occupied the 22nd floor of a gleaming Atlanta skyscraper. The reception area featured African art pieces and framed newspaper headlines chronicling Benjamin Taylor's most significant legal victories, a deliberate reminder to visitors of exactly whom they were dealing with. Jasmine sat in a conference room with Benjamin Taylor, his intense focus belying his relaxed posture as he reviewed the documents spread before him. At 53, Taylor had become the premier civil rights attorney in the Southeast, known for taking on corporate giants and winning settlements that included not just monetary compensation but structural changes to address systemic discrimination. "You've built quite a case here," he observed, examining the timeline Jasmine and Michael had constructed. "Captain Morgan has 3 previous complaints of similar behavior filed against him in the past 4 years, all dismissed. The flight attendant, Sofia Rodriguez, confirms your account completely. Dr. Davis provides a credible third-party witness statement. And, of course, there's the video evidence." "But?" Jasmine prompted, hearing the unspoken reservation in his voice. Benjamin looked up. "But corporations like Skyline have deep pockets and deeper entrenchment. They'll claim this was an isolated incident, offer you a settlement with a confidentiality agreement, and continue business as usual." "I'm not interested in a settlement," Jasmine stated firmly. "Most clients say that initially," Benjamin replied with a knowing smile. "Then they see the numbers and reconsider." Jasmine leaned forward. "Mr. Taylor, I could buy this entire building without affecting my monthly budget. This isn't about money for me." Benjamin studied her with new interest. "Then what is it about, Ms. Washington?" "Accountability and change," she answered without hesitation. "I want Skyline Airways to become the industry standard for how companies address and prevent racial discrimination. That's a lofty goal. I don't set small ones." Benjamin nodded slowly, beginning to understand the woman sitting across from him. "There's something you should know. My investigative team has uncovered internal emails showing that Skyline's executive team is aware of a pattern of discriminatory incidents but has deliberately chosen not to address them. One email from CEO William Preston to the head of operations reads, "Implementing these diversity training programs would be an unnecessary expense and an implicit admission that we have a problem." Jasmine wasn't surprised, but the confirmation still stung. "Can we use that in court?" "Potentially, though they'll fight hard to keep internal communications private," Benjamin confirmed. "But there's more. Captain Morgan's personnel file shows he's been involved in at least 5 incidents with passengers of color, not just the 3 we initially found. Each time, the company closed ranks around him. Why? What makes him so special that they protect him repeatedly?" "He's William Preston's former Air Force buddy," Benjamin revealed. "They served together before Preston went into business and Morgan became a commercial pilot. It's a classic old boys network." Jasmine absorbed this information, adding it to her mental calculus. "What about Sofia Rodriguez? She's been with the company 7 years, exemplary record. But I'm concerned about her performance review tomorrow. Our source in HR says they're building a case to terminate her for unrelated reasons, suddenly discovering issues with her paperwork from 3 years ago. Classic retaliation tactics," Jasmine observed. "Can we protect her?" "I've advised her not to sign anything and to record the meeting if possible. Georgia is a one-party consent state for recordings," Benjamin explained. "But ultimately, they can find ways to make her work life unbearable even if they don't fire her outright." Jasmine made a mental note to ensure Sophia would be taken care of regardless of the outcome. "I want to set up a meeting with Harold Blackstone," she announced. Benjamin raised an eyebrow. "The founder?" "He's been out of operations for years. He still owns 15% of the company and holds the title of chairman emeritus. More importantly, he sold me my 45% stake." Benjamin's jaw actually dropped. You own 45% of Skyline Airways?" Jasmine nodded calmly. "I'm the mystery investor Preston has been trying to identify for 2 years. Why didn't you lead with that information?" Benjamin asked, clearly recalibrating his entire approach to the case. "Because this isn't about me using my position to get special treatment," Jasmine explained. "This is about exposing how Skyline treats passengers when they think no one important is watching." Benjamin leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Ms. Washington, I've represented celebrities, politicians, and business leaders, but I've never had a client who owned nearly half the company they were suing." "I'm not suing them yet," Jasmine clarified. "First, I want to give them enough rope to hang themselves. I've spent 2 years submitting anonymous recommendations for diversity initiatives and watching them get ignored or dismissed. I've documented every response. Now, I want to see how they handle this crisis when they don't know who I really am." "And then?" Benjamin prompted. "And then I reveal myself and demand the changes that should have been implemented long ago." With the leverage of 45% ownership and a potential public relations nightmare. Benjamin nodded appreciatively. "It's a strong strategy. But what about Harold Blackstone? Can he be trusted?" "I believe so," Jasmine replied. "He sold me the shares because he wanted someone with fresh perspectives to help modernize the company culture, but he's been pushed to the sidelines by Preston and the board. I need to understand exactly where he stands before I make my next move." As they wrapped up the meeting, Benjamin's assistant entered with breaking news. The Skyline Airways stock had fallen 5% since morning as more videos of the incident went viral and calls for a boycott gained traction. "Preston must be panicking," Benjamin observed. "Good," Jasmine replied simply. Later that afternoon, Jasmine met Harold Blackstone at his sprawling estate in Buckhead, Atlanta's most exclusive neighborhood. At 72, Blackstone remained sharp and engaged, though his weathered face showed the strain of recent events. "I recognized you immediately from the videos," he said after they were seated in his study. Though I must say, you looked quite different during our acquisition meetings. That was intentional, Jasmine acknowledged. I wanted to experience Skyline as an ordinary passenger would. Harold nodded thoughtfully. And instead, you experienced what too many have experienced before, discrimination that I always tried to prevent during my tenure. Did you know about Captain Morgan's history? Jasmine asked directly. Harold's expression darkened. Not until recently. William has been systematically excluding me from operational matters for years, despite my title. When I inquired about previous incidents after seeing what happened to you, I was told they were minor customer service issues that had been appropriately handled. They weren't minor, and they weren't handled at all, Jasmine stated. I'm beginning to understand that, Harold said sadly. I built Skyline from a regional carrier with 3 planes into a national airline. My vision was to create the most welcoming, passenger-focused experience in the industry. Instead, he gestured helplessly. Instead, William Preston has created a culture where discrimination is protected and whistleblowers are punished, Jasmine finished for him. I feel responsible, Harold admitted. I chose William as my successor. I thought his business acumen would help Skyline thrive financially, which it has. But at what cost to our integrity? It's not too late to change course, Jasmine assured him. That's why I'm here. Harold studied her carefully. What exactly are you planning, Ms. Washington? I'm calling for an emergency board meeting next week, she revealed. As the largest shareholder, I have that right. But before I do, I wanted to know where you stand. With you, Harold replied without hesitation. The company I built should reflect my values, not become another soulless corporate entity that prioritizes profit over people. Jasmine felt a weight lift from her shoulders. With Harold's 15% combined with her 45%, she would have a controlling stake. The path forward suddenly became clearer. As she was leaving, Harold stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. Be careful, Jasmine. William won't give up power easily, and he has allies throughout the company and on the board. I'm counting on him to fight, Jasmine replied with quiet confidence. That's when people reveal who they truly are. Back at her hotel, Jasmine received an urgent call from Michael. Preston is digging into your background, he reported. He's hired a private investigator to find anything he can use against you. And there's something else, Captain Morgan has been contacting passengers from the flight, asking them to sign statements supporting his version of events. Is he offering incentives? Jasmine asked. Upgraded status, free flights, Michael confirmed. Some have refused, but a few have agreed. Document everything, Jasmine instructed. And Michael, it's time to move to phase 2. Set up the interview with Maya Johnson at National News Network for tomorrow. Are you sure? Once you go public, there's no turning back. I'm sure, Jasmine affirmed. It's time to bring this fight into the light. After ending the call, Jasmine stood at the window of her hotel room, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her to stand tall in a world that often tried to diminish her. She thought about Sofia Rodriguez, risking her livelihood to speak truth. She thought about Dr. Davis, using his position to advocate for justice. No turning back, she whispered to herself, her reflection resolute in the darkened glass. The National News Network studio lights were hot, but Jasmine Washington remained cool and composed as makeup artists applied final touches before her live interview. Maya Johnson, one of the network's most respected journalists, reviewed her notes nearby, occasionally glancing at Jasmine with professional curiosity. We're live in 3 minutes, a producer announced. Maya moved to the chair opposite Jasmine. Just to confirm, there are no off-limit questions. None, Jasmine assured her. Complete transparency. Maya nodded appreciatively. That's refreshing. Most guests come with a list of restrictions longer than my contract. The countdown began, and the red light on the camera illuminated. Maya turned to face the viewers with practiced ease. Good evening. I'm Maya Johnson. Tonight, we have an exclusive interview with Jasmine Washington, the woman at the center of a viral video showing a Skyline Airways pilot striking her in first class. Ms. Washington, thank you for joining us. Thank you for having me, Maya. Let's start with the incident itself. Can you walk us through what happened? Jasmine recounted the events calmly and factually, neither embellishing nor downplaying the humiliation and pain she had experienced. Skyline Airways has issued a statement saying they're conducting a thorough investigation, and that Captain Morgan has been placed on administrative leave. Are you satisfied with their response? Maya asked. No, Jasmine replied directly. Their statement carefully avoids acknowledging what actually occurred, that a uniformed employee physically assaulted a passenger based on racial profiling. Furthermore, they've been pressuring witnesses to change their statements and attempting to silence those who speak out. Those are serious allegations, Maya noted. Do you have evidence to support them? I do, Jasmine confirmed. Flight attendant Sofia Rodriguez has been threatened with termination for providing an honest account of the incident. Dr. Anthony Davis, a professor who witnessed everything, has been pressured through his university to stop speaking publicly. And Captain Morgan has been contacting passengers, offering incentives for statements supporting his version of events. Maya looked genuinely surprised. This goes beyond the incident itself, then. It points to a systemic problem, Jasmine agreed. And that brings me to the real reason I wanted to speak with you tonight. The studio seemed to still as Jasmine leaned forward slightly. For the past 2 years, I have been the silent majority owner of Skyline Airways, holding 45% of the company's shares. Maya's professional composure momentarily slipped. I'm sorry, you own Skyline Airways? I am the largest individual shareholder, Jasmine clarified. I purchased my stake from founder Harold Blackstone 2 years ago but chose to remain anonymous to observe how the company operated when they didn't know who was watching. And what have you observed? Maya asked, fully engaged now. A pattern of discrimination that goes all the way to the top, Jasmine stated firmly. CEO William Preston has personally rejected multiple proposals for diversity training and inclusive hiring practices. Internal communications reveal that complaints similar to mine have been systematically buried. Captain Morgan, who has a documented history of discriminatory behavior, has been protected because of his personal relationship with Preston. If you own such a significant portion of the company, why haven't you made changes before now? I wanted to understand the depth of the problem first, Jasmine explained. As a silent investor, I've submitted anonymous recommendations through various channels, all of which were dismissed or ignored. That told me the issues were cultural and systemic, requiring more than just policy changes. And now? Maya prompted. Now I'm calling for an emergency board meeting next week, where I'll present evidence of these systemic problems and demand immediate action, including leadership changes if necessary. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, with Jasmine revealing more details about her background, her tech fortune, and her vision for transforming Skyline Airways into an industry leader for diversity and inclusion. As the segment ended and the cameras stopped rolling, Maya shook Jasmine's hand with genuine respect. That was remarkable television, Ms. Washington. And if I may say so, a masterful strategic move. It's not about strategy, Jasmine replied. It's about accountability. Within minutes of the interview airing, Skyline Airways stock plummeted in after-hours trading. William Preston, who had been watching from his office with growing horror, found his phone ringing non-stop with calls from board members, reporters, and major shareholders. What the hell just happened? Demanded Robert Chambers, the same board member who had called earlier. You told us this was under control. I had no idea she was our mystery investor, Preston defended, his mind racing to calculate the implications. This changes everything. It certainly does, Robert agreed coldly. She owns 45%, Harold supports her, which means together they have controlling interest. Your position is untenable, William. Now wait a minute, Preston protested. She's just one shareholder making a lot of noise. She can't just waltz in and, she can and she has, Robert interrupted. The board is convening an emergency session tonight. I suggest you prepare your resignation letter. Preston slammed down the phone, his face flushed with anger. This couldn't be happening. He'd built Skyline into a financial powerhouse over the past 5 years. His strategies had increased profits by 37%. Now everything was threatened because of one incident with one passenger who turned out to be much more than she appeared. His private line rang. Captain Morgan calling from his lake house where he'd been enjoying his paid leave. Tell me this is a nightmare, Morgan said without preamble. The woman I slapped owns the airline. Apparently so, Preston confirmed grimly. What do we do? Morgan asked, panic edging into his voice. We fight back, Preston decided. She may own shares, but she's making wild accusations without proof. We'll discredit her, question her motives, suggest she orchestrated the whole incident for publicity or leverage. Do you think that will work? It has to, Preston replied. Because the alternative is unacceptable. Meanwhile, Jasmine's phone lit up with messages of support from unexpected quarters. Dozens of current and former Skyline employees reached out to share their experiences of discrimination or witnessing discriminatory practices within the company. Passengers came forward with their own stories. Perhaps most surprisingly, Harold Blackstone called to inform her that board members were already contacting him, trying to gauge where his loyalty lay. They're panicking, he told her with grim satisfaction. Preston has lost 3 allies on the board already. They're jumping ship like rats. And you? Jasmine asked. Are you still with me after my public revelation? More than ever, Harold assured her. Watching you speak truth to power reminded me why I started this airline in the first place. It was never just about profits for me. After hanging up, Jasmine found another message waiting, this one from Sophia Rodriguez. Ms. Washington, I just saw your interview. I'm in tears. Thank you for standing up not just for yourself but for all of us who've been afraid to speak out. Whatever happens next, know that you've already changed things for people like me who never thought we had a voice against the system. Jasmine was composing a reply when Michael called with a new development. Preston's fighting back, he reported. They've issued a statement questioning your motives, suggesting you orchestrated the confrontation to gain leverage for a hostile takeover of the company. Jasmine laughed softly. How can it be a hostile takeover when I already own 45%? They're also digging into your past, trying to find anything that might discredit you. And there's chatter about Captain Morgan filing a defamation lawsuit against you personally. Let them try, Jasmine replied confidently. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation claims. There's one more thing, Michael added, his tone growing serious. Your grandmother's address in Harlem, someone leaked it online. I've already arranged for security, but you should know they're playing dirty now. Jasmine's confidence wavered for the first time. Her grandmother had passed away, but the apartment was now occupied by her cousin and her children. The idea that they might be targeted because of her actions sent a chill through her. Increase security and move them to a hotel if necessary, she instructed. And Michael? It's time to release the recordings. All of them? Michael asked, clearly surprised. Every last one, Jasmine confirmed. Preston wants to play dirty. Let's see how he handles having his own words made public. As she ended the call, Jasmine stared at her reflection in the hotel mirror. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, when you get power, you change the rules. The rules were about to change at Skyline Airways, and William Preston had no idea what was coming next. The Skyline Airways boardroom occupied the top floor of their Atlanta headquarters, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city skyline. The massive oak table, imported from Italy during more prosperous times, gleamed under recessed lighting as board members took their seats, tension thick in the air. William Preston sat at the head of the table, his usual commanding presence diminished by the events of the past week. The company's stock had fallen 17% since Jasmine's television interview. Major corporate clients were quietly shifting their business travel contracts to competitors. Social media campaigns calling for Preston's resignation were gaining traction by the hour. Harold Blackstone entered with Jasmine Washington, an unexpected visual contrast, the elderly white founder and the young black tech mogul, united in purpose. Behind them came Benjamin Taylor, carrying a leather portfolio filled with documents that would shape the future of Skyline Airways. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board," Preston began, forcing confidence into his voice, "we face an unprecedented situation that threatens the stability and future of this company. While I welcome Ms. Washington's interest in Skyline's operations, I must express concern about the manner in which she has chosen to address her grievances." Jasmine noted the careful wording. He was acknowledging her ownership stake while attempting to characterize her actions as harmful to the company. "Ms. Washington has made serious allegations against Skyline and its employees based on a single unfortunate incident," Preston continued. "An incident that, I should note, is still under investigation and may not reflect the complete reality of what occurred." Harold Blackstone's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting the video evidence is somehow misleading, William?" "I'm suggesting that context matters," Preston replied smoothly. "Captain Morgan has served this airline with distinction for 22 years. His account of events differs significantly from Ms. Washington's. That's why we've invited him here today," Jasmine interjected calmly. "So we can all hear his perspective directly." Preston couldn't hide his surprise. "Captain Morgan hasn't been asked to attend this meeting." "I invited him," Jasmine revealed. "As the largest shareholder, that's my prerogative. He should be arriving momentarily." On cue, the boardroom door opened, and Captain Thomas Morgan entered, looking considerably less confident than he had on the aircraft. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Jasmine, but he quickly composed himself and took the empty seat Preston indicated. "Now that we're all here," Jasmine began, rising to her feet, "let's address the real issues facing Skyline Airways. This isn't about one incident or one employee. This is about a corporate culture that enables and protects discriminatory behavior while punishing those who speak out against it." She activated a presentation on the room's display screen, showing a timeline of discrimination complaints filed against Skyline over the past 5 years, categorized by type, resolution status, and demographic information of the complainants. "As you can see, complaints from passengers of color are 3 times more likely to be dismissed without action than those from white passengers. Employees who report witnessing discrimination are 40% more likely to receive negative performance reviews within 6 months of their reports." Preston shifted uncomfortably. "These statistics can be interpreted in multiple ways. Let's move to more specific evidence," Jasmine continued, undeterred. "Captain Morgan has been the subject of 5 formal complaints regarding discriminatory behavior in the past 4 years. Each complaint was dismissed despite corroborating witness statements." Captain Morgan leaned forward. "That's a mischaracterization of, your exact words to a Nigerian passenger in first class last year were, 'These seats cost more than your village,'" Jasmine stated, pulling up the complaint record. A flight attendant and 2 passengers confirmed hearing this statement. Captain Morgan's face flushed. "That was taken out of context." "And how exactly would that comment be acceptable in any context?" Harold Blackstone demanded, his voice sharp with disappointment. "The more relevant question," Preston interjected, trying to regain control of the meeting, "is why Ms. Washington has chosen this confrontational approach rather than working through proper channels as a shareholder." Jasmine smiled slightly. "I'm glad you mentioned proper channels, Mr. Preston. For the past 18 months, I have submitted 17 detailed proposals for diversity training, inclusive hiring practices, and improved complaint resolution processes through your proper channels. Would you like to know how many received substantive responses?" The board members looked to Preston expectantly. 0, Jasmine answered her own question. But don't take my word for it. Let's review your own responses. She played an audio recording of Preston's voice. Another diversity proposal from our mystery investor. File it with the others. We're running an airline, not a social justice workshop. Preston's expression hardened. You recorded private conversations? That's potentially illegal and certainly unethical. Georgia is a one-party consent state for recordings, Benjamin Taylor reminded him. And these were recorded during Ms. Washington's legitimate business interactions with Skyline executives. Jasmine continued, when I purchased my ownership stake, I made it clear to Harold that my goal was to help transform Skyline into an industry leader for inclusivity and excellence. Instead, I discovered a company where discrimination is tolerated, whistleblowers are silenced, and leadership actively resists meaningful change. She turned to Captain Morgan. Captain, would you like to explain to the board why you approached me on that flight? What specifically made you question my presence in first class? Morgan glanced at Preston, who gave a barely perceptible nod. You didn't look like our typical first-class passenger. I was concerned about security. In what way did I not look typical? Jasmine pressed. Was it my age? My gender? Or was it my skin color? This is absurd, Morgan blustered. You're trying to make this about race when it was about behavior. What behavior? Jasmine challenged. I was sitting quietly in my assigned seat. Multiple witnesses and videos confirm this. You became confrontational when I questioned your ticket, Morgan insisted. So asking to be treated with basic respect constitutes confrontational behavior in your view? Morgan's composure cracked. Look, I've been flying for Skyline for 22 years. I know our passengers. You didn't fit the profile. And there it is, Jasmine said quietly. The profile. Not my actions, not any security concern, but simply who I am. The board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Robert Chambers, who had been silently observing, finally spoke up. Ms. Washington, while these revelations are disturbing, what exactly are you seeking from this meeting? Jasmine turned to address the full board. Immediate termination of Captain Morgan and any other employees with documented patterns of discriminatory behavior. The resignation of William Preston as CEO. Implementation of comprehensive diversity and inclusion training at all levels of the company. Establishment of an independent oversight committee to review past complaints and ensure fair resolution. And significant revision of hiring practices to increase diversity throughout the organization, especially in leadership positions. Preston laughed incredulously. You expect the board to surrender control of the company based on one incident and some cherry-picked statistics? No, Jasmine replied calmly. I expect the board to recognize that with my 45% ownership combined with Harold's 15%, we have controlling interest in Skyline Airways. These aren't requests. They're the new direction of the company. A heavy silence fell over the room as the reality of the situation sank in. Captain Morgan broke it, turning to Preston. You promised this would never happen. You said you had everything under control. Thomas, that's enough, Preston warned, but it was too late. You told me to put that woman in her place. Morgan continued, his voice rising. You said these diversity complaints were just noise we could ignore because you controlled the board. All eyes turned to Preston, whose carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. This is a coordinated attack on everything we've built, he declared, desperation edging into his voice. Ms. Washington orchestrated this entire situation to justify a takeover. She deliberately provoked Captain Morgan by being confrontational. I have the video evidence, Jasmine reminded everyone. As do millions of people online. Are you suggesting I somehow plan to be physically assaulted? Preston's arguments grew increasingly erratic as he realized his position was untenable. The board cannot allow an inexperienced tech entrepreneur with a social justice agenda to destroy a 70-year-old airline. The board doesn't have a choice, Robert Chambers pointed out. She and Harold control the majority of shares. Then I'll take this public, Preston threatened. I'll tell everyone how she manipulated this situation. I welcome that, Jasmine interrupted. The more people examine the facts, the clearer the truth becomes. Harold Blackstone stood up slowly, his voice heavy with authority earned over decades. I founded this airline on the principle that every passenger deserves dignity and respect. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that. It's time to return to our core values. He turned to Preston. William, I selected you as my successor because I believed in your business acumen. But an airline isn't just a business, it's a public trust. You've broken that trust, and it's time for you to step down. The board voted 8-2 to accept Preston's resignation, effective immediately. Captain Morgan was terminated for cause, with no severance package. Harold Blackstone was appointed interim CEO while a search committee was formed to find a permanent replacement. As the meeting concluded, Preston gathered his belongings, his movements stiff with suppressed rage. You'll regret this, he told Jasmine quietly. I still have friends in this industry and beyond. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Jasmine replied, sliding a folder toward him. This contains evidence of your efforts to suppress discrimination complaints, pressure witnesses, and retaliate against employees who spoke out. If you choose to pursue any action against Skyline, its new leadership, or me personally, these documents will be made public. Preston stared at her, recognition dawning in his eyes. You've been planning this from the beginning. No, Jasmine corrected him. I've been hoping I wouldn't need to do this. You could have addressed these issues at any point over the past 2 years. You chose not to. These are the consequences of your choices, not mine. As Preston left the boardroom for the last time, Jasmine felt no triumph, only a quiet resolve to fulfill the promise she had made to her grandmother years ago: when you get power, change the rules. Make them fair for everyone. The real work was just beginning. The Atlanta morning dawned with a headline that sent shockwaves through the business world: Skyline Airways CEO ousted as billionaire investor takes control. Financial analysts scrambled to reassess the airline's future, while social media exploded with reactions to the boardroom coup that had unseated William Preston. But while the public face of Skyline Airways was changing, behind the scenes, forces were mobilizing against Jasmine Washington's vision for the company. Preston hadn't left quietly. Before vacating his office, he had downloaded confidential files, contacted loyal executives, and set in motion a plan to undermine the new leadership. His decades in the industry had earned him powerful allies who were now calling emergency meetings of their own. In a private dining room at the Capital City Club, Preston gathered his inner circle: Patricia Miller, his former PR director; James Hoffman, Skyline CFO who had survived the board meeting but remained loyal to Preston; Victor Rawlings, a major investor with ties to several board members; and Richard Turner, a business reporter known for hit pieces on corporate leaders who had fallen from grace. She thinks she's won, Preston told the assembled group, swirling the scotch in his glass. But she's about to learn that business is played by different rules than her tech world. The stock has stabilized since the announcement, Hoffman reported. The market seems cautiously optimistic about her involvement, especially after that puff piece in the Business Journal about her tech background. That will change, Preston promised. Richard is preparing an exposé questioning her qualifications to run an airline and suggesting the entire discrimination incident was orchestrated to justify her takeover. The reporter nodded. I've got sources suggesting she's been planning this for months. The timing of her being on that specific flight with that specific crew was too convenient. What about legal options? Victor Rawlings asked. Morgan is furious about being terminated without severance. Could he sue? Already in motion, Preston confirmed. He's filing a defamation suit against Washington personally, claiming she falsely accused him of racial discrimination and destroyed his reputation and career. Patricia Miller, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. The legal case is a long shot given the video evidence, but it will create a distraction and force her to divert resources to her personal defense. Exactly, Preston agreed. And I've leaked information about her business dealings to financial blogs suggesting she's overextended and using Skyline as a vanity project to distract from troubles in her tech companies. Is there any truth to that? Hoffman asked cautiously. Doesn't matter, Preston dismissed. The market reacts to perception, not reality. By the time anyone verifies the facts, the damage will be done. Meanwhile, across town, Sofia Rodriguez arrived at Skyline headquarters for what she expected to be her last day. Despite the leadership changes, she had already received a termination notice from HR, citing performance issues identified during her review. The timing made the retaliation obvious, but fighting a corporate giant seemed hopeless even with Jasmine's legal support. As she cleaned out her locker in the staff area, her supervisor approached with an uncomfortable expression. Rodriguez, there's someone waiting for you in conference room B. Sofia braced herself for a final humiliation, perhaps additional paperwork or an exit interview designed to extract a non-disclosure agreement. Instead, she found Harold Blackstone and Jasmine Washington waiting for her. Ms. Rodriguez, Harold greeted her warmly. Please, have a seat. Confused, Sofia complied, clutching her small box of personal items. I understand you received a termination notice this morning, Jasmine said, sliding the document across the table. Consider it void. Sofia stared at them in disbelief. I don't understand. Your termination was retaliation for telling the truth about what happened on Flight 372, Harold explained. That kind of behavior has no place in the Skyline Airways we're rebuilding. Instead, Jasmine continued, we'd like to offer you a new position, Vice President of Customer Experience. We need someone with integrity and first-hand knowledge of passenger interactions to help transform our service culture. Sofia's eyes widened. But I'm just a flight attendant. I don't have management experience. You have 7 years of direct customer experience and, more importantly, the courage to stand up for what's right even when it cost you, Jasmine countered. That's exactly the leadership we need. As Sofia processed this unexpected reversal of fortune, Michael Kingston burst into the room, his expression grave. We have a situation, he announced. Preston's team is moving faster than anticipated. They've leaked Jasmine's personal information online, including her grandmother's former address in Harlem. Is my cousin's family safe? Jasmine asked immediately. They're secure at the hotel, but there's more. Financial blogs are running stories questioning your tech company's stability, suggesting you're using Skyline as a distraction from business failures. Captain Morgan has filed a defamation lawsuit against you personally. And someone leaked Dr. Davis's university employment records, including a disciplinary note from 10 years ago that's being characterized as a pattern of aggressive behavior. Harold shook his head in disgust. William always did fight dirty when cornered. Jasmine remained calm. They're trying to force us to play defense instead of implementing changes. We won't take the bait. There's one more thing, Michael added reluctantly. Harold's medical records were accessed. Someone knows about his heart condition and is using it to suggest he's not fit for even an interim CEO role. Harold's face paled slightly. That's private medical information. Nothing is private when you're threatening the old guard, Jasmine observed. They're coming after everyone associated with our efforts. Indeed, across the city, Dr. Anthony Davis was being called into an emergency meeting with the university president. The leaked disciplinary note, from a heated academic debate a decade earlier, was being weaponized to suggest he had anger management issues that undermined his credibility as a witness. Anthony, there's significant concern about your public involvement in this Skyline Airways situation, President Townsend began. The university has received calls from major donors questioning your objectivity and temperament. Based on a confidential personnel matter from 10 years ago that someone illegally accessed and leaked. Dr. Davis challenged. That's transparent retaliation, Lawrence, and you know it. Nevertheless, the board feels it would be best if you took a voluntary leave of absence until this blows over. Dr. Davis laughed incredulously. So I'm being punished for witnessing discrimination and speaking out against it? What message does that send to our students? This isn't about the incident itself, President Townsend insisted. It's about your increasingly public activism potentially compromising the university's neutrality. There is no neutrality when it comes to racial discrimination, Dr. Davis stated firmly. And I will not take a leave of absence for doing what any decent human being should do. As he left the president's office, Dr. Davis received a text message from an unknown number, Academic Freedom Organization standing by with legal support if needed. They won't silence you. JW, the coordinated counterattack continued throughout the day. Skyline's stock dipped as financial analysts raised concerns about the new leadership direction. Social media accounts with suspicious activity patterns began questioning Jasmine's motives and qualifications. Preston's allies on the board started expressing reservations about the rapid changes being implemented. Back at Skyline headquarters, Jasmine called an emergency meeting of her own team. They're trying to divide and conquer, she explained to the assembled group, which included Harold, Benjamin Taylor, Michael, and now Sophia. Preston's playbook is to attack from multiple angles, create enough doubt and chaos that we're forced to compromise or retreat. It's working to some degree, Michael admitted. The stock is down 4% today alone. Let it drop, Jasmine replied with surprising calm. We're playing a longer game than Preston realizes. What about the personal attacks? Sophia asked. They're going after everyone connected to you. That's why we need to move faster, not slower, Jasmine decided. Benjamin, file immediate countersuits against Morgan for filing a frivolous lawsuit and against Preston for corporate espionage based on the files he downloaded before leaving. Already prepared, Benjamin confirmed. And I've got restraining orders ready for anyone who approaches your family members or attempts to access private records of our team. Michael, accelerate the diversity training implementation to next week instead of next month. And double the hiring targets for the diversity initiative. The board may push back on the increased budget, Michael cautioned. Let them, Jasmine said. With our controlling interest, they can voice concerns but not block the changes. Harold, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. William is counting on us to be defensive, to spend our energy fighting his attacks instead of moving forward. He doesn't realize that you've been planning this transformation for 2 years, not 2 days. Jasmine nodded. Exactly. Which is why we're going to release the complete archive of discrimination complaints tomorrow, along with the internal communications showing how they were systematically buried. That's nuclear, Michael warned. It will dominate the news cycle and potentially damage Skyline's reputation further. Sometimes you have to lance the wound to heal it, Jasmine replied. Skyline's reputation is already damaged by the reality of how it operates. We're just bringing that reality into the light so we can change it. The next morning, while Preston and his allies were celebrating their seemingly successful counteroffensive, Jasmine Washington held a press conference that changed the narrative entirely. With Harold Blackstone at her side, she released over 200 discrimination complaints filed against Skyline over the past 5 years, along with internal emails showing how executives had deliberately suppressed them. This isn't about one incident or one employee, she told the assembled reporters. This is about a systemic failure to treat all passengers with dignity and respect. Today marks the beginning of a new era at Skyline Airways. One where accountability and inclusivity are paramount. The story exploded across all media platforms. Former Skyline employees came forward with their own experiences, corroborating the documented pattern. Industry experts began discussing the wider implications for corporate culture and diversity initiatives. Preston's carefully orchestrated counterattack suddenly seemed petty and vindictive by comparison. His allies on the board began distancing themselves, unwilling to be associated with the damning evidence now public. That evening, as Jasmine worked late in her temporary office at Skyline headquarters, she received an urgent call from Michael. "Harold's been rushed to the hospital," he reported, his voice tight with concern. "Apparent heart attack during a meeting with investors." The stress of everything. Jasmine felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. "Which hospital?" "I'm on my way. Atlanta Memorial." "But Jasmine, there's something else." While everyone's attention is on Harold, Preston's team is making a move. They're approaching minority shareholders, offering to buy their shares at a premium to consolidate enough voting power to challenge your control. "Let them try," Jasmine replied, already heading for the elevator. "We have more important concerns right now." At the hospital, Jasmine found Harold in the cardiac care unit, pale but conscious. The doctors reported he had suffered a mild heart attack brought on by stress, but with proper rest and medication, he should recover. "I'm so sorry," Harold whispered when she entered his room. "I've let you down at a critical moment." "You haven't let anyone down," Jasmine assured him, taking his hand. "You've been fighting this battle much longer than I have. Now it's my turn to carry it forward while you recover." Harold's eyes filled with tears. "My wife always said Skyline was my first child. Seeing what it became under William, it broke my heart in more ways than one. We're going to restore it," Jasmine promised. "Make it something you can be proud of again." As she left the hospital, Jasmine found Dr. Davis waiting in the lobby. "I heard about Harold," he said. "How is he?" "Stable, but the doctor says he needs complete rest," Jasmine replied. "How did you know we'd be here?" "Michael called me. He thought you might need support." Dr. Davis hesitated before continuing. "I also wanted you to know that I've been suspended from my teaching position pending a review of my public activism." Jasmine's expression hardened. "They can't do that." "They can and they have," Dr. Davis said with resigned dignity. "But I don't regret standing up for what's right. Some principles are worth the personal cost." Looking at this man who had sacrificed his professional standing to support a stranger, Jasmine felt a renewed determination. Preston and his allies were willing to destroy lives to maintain their power and privilege. The question now was whether she was willing to make the same level of commitment to creating change. As she drove back to her hotel, Jasmine received a call from an unknown number. "Ms. Washington," came a familiar voice, "William Preston. I think it's time we spoke directly, without lawyers or boards between us. I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Preston." "You'll want to hear this," he insisted. "I'm prepared to end this war, but my terms are non-negotiable. You sell your shares back to me and my investor group at a 20% premium. You retract your statements about systemic discrimination at Skyline. We reinstate Captain Morgan with back pay. And we all move on with our lives." "That's not going to happen," Jasmine replied coldly. "Then prepare for the consequences," Preston threatened. "Your grandmother's apartment building in Harlem? There's been an unfortunate fire. No injuries, thankfully, but extensive damage to the structure. Strange coincidence, isn't it?" Jasmine's blood ran cold. "Are you admitting to arson now, William?" "I'm simply pointing out that actions have consequences," Preston replied smoothly. "Your cousin and her children are safe in a hotel, but where will they live long-term? And what other unfortunate incidents might occur as this conflict continues?" "You've miscalculated, William," Jasmine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I don't respond well to threats." "It's not a threat. It's a reality check," Preston countered. "You think you can waltz into an established industry and rewrite the rules overnight? There are powerful interests who prefer things exactly as they are. You're not just fighting me, you're fighting an entire system. Then so be it, Jasmine replied before ending the call. She immediately dialed Michael. Preston just implied he was behind a fire at my grandmother's building in Harlem. Get our security team to check on my cousin's family and increase their protection. And Michael? It's time for the final phase. Preston wants to fight the system. Let's show him exactly who has the power to change it. The battle for Skyline Airways had escalated beyond corporate boardrooms into a personal war, and Jasmine Washington was now fully committed to winning it, no matter the cost. 6 months later, the Skyline Airways headquarters gleamed in the Atlanta sunshine, its renovated lobby featuring a new addition, a wall of photographs celebrating the diverse employees who had shaped the airline's 70-year history. At the center hung a portrait of Harold Blackstone, the founder whose vision was being renewed under fresh leadership. Inside the executive conference room, Jasmine Washington stood before the board of directors, presenting the quarterly results that had exceeded even the most optimistic projections. The stock price had not only recovered but reached an all-time high. Customer satisfaction scores showed dramatic improvement. Employee retention had increased by 23%. 6 months ago, many questioned whether Skyline Airways could survive the turbulence of leadership change and cultural transformation, Jasmine acknowledged. Today, the numbers speak for themselves. By addressing our systemic problems head-on rather than burying them, we've created a stronger, more resilient company. Robert Chambers, who had initially been skeptical of Jasmine's approach, nodded in approval. The market has responded positively to transparency. Our corporate clients appreciate knowing we're addressing issues proactively rather than defensively. After the meeting concluded, Jasmine made her way to the executive suite that had once belonged to William Preston. She had declined to use it herself, preferring a smaller office near the customer service department, where she could remain connected to the daily operations of the airline. Michael Kingston waited for her with the day's agenda. The new batch of pilots from our diversity recruitment initiative has completed training. Sophia wants to know if you'll attend their graduation ceremony next week. Absolutely, Jasmine confirmed. How is the mentorship program going? Exceeding expectations. 93% of participants report feeling better prepared for advancement opportunities. Michael paused before delivering the next update. And Harold's doctor has cleared him to return as chairman emeritus next month, though only in a limited capacity. Jasmine smiled at this welcome news. Harold's recovery had been slow but steady, and his guidance during the transition had been invaluable even from his reduced role. What about Dr. Davis? She asked. The American Association of University Professors concluded their investigation and found that his suspension was unwarranted retaliation for protected speech. The university has reinstated him with back pay and a formal apology. And the passenger advocacy committee he's heading for us? Their first set of recommendations has been implemented across all customer service protocols. Complaint resolution time has decreased by 64%, and satisfaction with outcomes has increased dramatically. Jasmine nodded, satisfied with the progress. And what about our former leadership? Michael's expression turned serious. Preston's investor group abandoned him after the evidence of corporate espionage became public. He's facing potential criminal charges for the confidential files he downloaded and shared. The SEC is also investigating him for possible securities fraud related to his statements about the company's financial health. And Captain Morgan? Working as a baggage handler at Denver International Airport, Michael reported with a hint of satisfaction. His defamation lawsuit was dismissed, and the FAA suspended his pilot's license pending their own investigation into his conduct. Any regrets about how everything unfolded? Michael asked, studying his boss carefully. Jasmine considered the question. The past 6 months had been the most challenging of her career. The personal attacks had been vicious, her family threatened, her business reputation questioned, her motives endlessly scrutinized. For weeks, she had lived with enhanced security and slept poorly, wondering if Preston's desperate counterattacks would escalate further. The turning point had come unexpectedly. Preston's implied threat about the fire at her grandmother's building had been a critical miscalculation. When Jasmine revealed the recorded conversation to law enforcement, it had triggered investigations that uncovered far more than anyone anticipated, including financial improprieties that Preston had been hiding for years. "No regrets," Jasmine finally answered. "Though I wish it hadn't required so much collateral damage to create necessary change." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Sofia Rodriguez entered, now carrying herself with the confidence of an executive rather than the caution of someone accustomed to following orders. "The final report on discrimination complaint resolutions is ready," she announced. 100% of the backlogged cases have been reviewed and addressed. 87% resulted in formal apologies and appropriate compensation to the affected passengers. "And the other 13%? Jasmine asked. "Unsubstantiated or resolved previously," Sofia explained. "But even those received acknowledgement and follow-up to ensure the passengers felt heard." Jasmine nodded approvingly. "That's the difference between checking boxes and creating real change." "There's something else," Sofia added, a slight smile playing at her lips. "You have a visitor in the lobby. Someone who specifically requested to see you in person." Curious, Jasmine made her way to the lobby, where she found a familiar face waiting, Captain Thomas Morgan, looking considerably humbled in his baggage handler uniform. "Ms. Washington," he greeted her stiffly. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "I didn't agree to anything," Jasmine pointed out, maintaining a professional distance. "But I'm willing to listen to whatever you came to say." Morgan shifted uncomfortably. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past months. Working on the ground instead of in the cockpit gives a man perspective." He took a deep breath before continuing. "What I did to you was wrong. Not just unprofessional, it was cruel and biased, and I've had to face that truth about myself." Jasmine remained silent, allowing him the space to continue. "I'm not asking for my job back," Morgan clarified. "I don't deserve that. But I wanted you to know that the diversity training program you've implemented at Skyline, I took something similar at my new job. It's opened my eyes to behaviors and attitudes I never questioned before." "Growth often begins with discomfort," Jasmine observed. "What do you want from this conversation, Captain Morgan?" "Nothing," he replied, surprising her. "I just thought you deserved to hear directly that your changes aren't just affecting Skyline. They're rippling through the industry. Even someone like me, who fought against them, well, I was wrong. That's all I came to say." As Morgan left, Jasmine felt an unexpected sense of closure. The transformation she had envisioned wasn't just about policies and procedures, it was about changing hearts and minds, even those that seemed most resistant. Later that afternoon, Jasmine visited Harold at his home, where he was continuing his recovery. They sat on his sun-drenched patio, reviewing the latest customer satisfaction reports. "Did you ever imagine, when you sold me those shares, that we'd end up here?" Jasmine asked. Harold chuckled. "I hoped for positive change, but I never anticipated this level of transformation, or drama." "Are you disappointed that your name will forever be associated with the discrimination that happened under Preston's leadership?" "No," Harold replied thoughtfully. "Legacies aren't about perfect histories. They're about the courage to acknowledge mistakes and the commitment to do better. Skyline is doing better now than I could have accomplished alone." He reached for a folder on the table beside him. "Which brings me to this. The board has approved your nomination as permanent CEO, effective immediately. It's yours if you want it." Jasmine took the folder but didn't open it. "When I bought those shares, I never intended to run an airline. I just wanted to create change from within." "Sometimes creating change means stepping up to lead it," Harold pointed out. "You've proven you can do both." Before Jasmine could respond, her phone chimed with a news alert. Skyline Airways named industry leader in diversity and inclusion, competitors scrambling to follow suit. Harold smiled. "Your grandmother would be proud." You didn't just change the rules at one company, you're changing them for an entire industry. Jasmine thought of her grandmother's words from so many years ago, when you get power, you change the rules. She had done exactly that, turning a moment of humiliation into a movement for transformation. I'll accept the position, she decided. But with one condition. We establish a permanent scholarship fund for underprivileged youth interested in aviation careers, named in honor of my grandmother, Martha Washington. Consider it done, Harold agreed warmly. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the Atlanta skyline, Jasmine reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a slap in first class to the CEO's office in 6 tumultuous months. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but the destination. A company transformed, an industry awakening, and a new standard of accountability, made every difficult step worthwhile. What would you do if you were in Jasmine's position? Would you have revealed your identity earlier, or was her patient approach the right strategy? Comment below with your thoughts. If this story of justice and transformation inspired you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more powerful stories, and share with someone who needs to be reminded that positive change is possible, even in the most entrenched systems. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the most powerful response to discrimination isn't just standing up for yourself, but changing the entire game. Jasmine Washington's journey teaches us that true power lies not in wealth or position, but in how we use our influence to create meaningful change. When faced with discrimination, she could have simply revealed her identity and punished Captain Morgan immediately. Instead, she chose the harder path, using her experience to expose and transform an entire system of injustice. This story reminds us that discrimination rarely exists in isolation. Behind every racist incident is often a culture that enables it, leaders who excuse it, and systems that protect the perpetrators rather than the victims. Real change requires addressing all these elements simultaneously. We also learn the importance of strategic patience. By gathering evidence and understanding the full scope of the problem before acting, Jasmine was able to create lasting transformation rather than a temporary fix. Her approach shows that sometimes we must endure personal humiliation to achieve greater justice for everyone. Perhaps most importantly, this story highlights the critical role of allies like Sophia Rodriguez, Dr. Davis, and Harold Blackstone. Fighting discrimination is never a solo journey, it requires courage from witnesses, support from those with power, and solidarity from everyone who believes in equality and dignity. True victory isn't just punishing one individual for a wrong, but rebuilding institutions to prevent such wrongs from happening again.